Hello, welcome to the emphasis lesson. So, emphasis is one of the most important parts of mapping, and it will take your maps and really start pushing you into the territory of, well, hey, my maps look like maps now. So, to start off, what is emphasis? Well, emphasis is showing certain sounds as being stronger in the song or more important in the song. So, in other words, if we look at this map right here, which was a good example of it, we have this. So this is big spacing, right? You can see the giant spacing right there on the one. And we can hear that there's that loud clap. Then here's more big spacing, and you can hear that's a kick, right? So every time you see spacing, it's on a big sound, right? That's emphasis. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing emphasis. You have spacing, of course, right? But there's more ways than one. So another way of showing emphasis is through direction change. What does that mean? Well, for instance, if we take a look at this, right? You can see this heads directly into the 2, because that's the snare, that's what's getting emphasis, right? But you could hear this is a kick here. Now, the kick isn't super spaced, right? It's quite close, but it's behind the slider. So when the player plays the slider, they're going to snap back up to the same place that they just came from, right? So they have to play the slider and go right back up. So that's direction change, because they're changing the direction that the player's going. And that will help to emphasize the 4. And then right after the 4, we have our snare again, which is a snap back down. So it's another direction change because we're keeping the player's cursor moving in a different direction. That's how we're emphasizing. So you don't always have to depend on spacing to show emphasis. Now, there's also one more way of showing emphasis, and it goes hand in hand with rhythm, which I can show using this map right here. Now, with this map here, the way you can emphasize is you could do it through certain objects, like making certain objects special, or making like a pattern that's special, right? So for instance, in this map, we have this. Only for this sound, doo-doo, it does this pattern. It never happens again in the map, right? Until that same part happens. Doo-doo. And it's consistent. It keeps happening, right? So here's another special thing for emphasizing, right? We're emphasizing that down pitch. Da-da-da-da. And it happens again. Da-da. And then it keeps going through the entire map. So it's emphasizing through special object placement. Now, there's another concept that goes hand in hand with emphasis, is called contrast. Contrast is showing that each section of the song is different, or showing that certain sections are similar. What does that mean? Well, if we look at this song here, this song is super, super calm in the start. So, as you can see, even though this first sound is way longer than the slider that I mapped, it ends like here instead, right? But because I want to show contrast and show the section of the song is very calm and it's not doing much yet, right? So I don't want the player to be doing much. So they're just going to play this one solo slider, and then they're going to go and wait, and then they're going to play 2, and it's going to repeat. Because this whole section is just this. I don't need to make it more dense. What do I mean by dense? Well, dense means a concept called density. Density means how many objects you have on the timeline. So, for instance, you could see with this current rhythm, it's a very, very low density, right? Like, there's only like 1 or 2 objects. There's a whole bunch of gap in the timeline, yeah. Like, and then, well, basically you could just tell because the timeline is so empty, right? It's just like, okay, low density, right? Whereas if we go here, the timeline is super full, yeah? So this is high density or very, very dense, right? So when it comes to contrast, it's something that's very important with each section because that's how you show the song is changing. So we show that the song is changing from the slow part here, and when we get to the next part here, you can see now it's getting more dense. It's not super dense, because remember, we're not in a key I, right? Because key I is the most dense part of a song, usually. So we're starting to build up the rhythm. We're filling in the timeline. The player's more active, till we get to the transition. Now we're adding in some snap aim, like these emphasis through direction changes, right? It's not exactly hard to play, because it doesn't need to be just yet. And then look, we change out the map to show this new sounds, right? So we showed emphasis through using new objects, and also we emphasize this clap here by doing the direction change away from the 3. And then we head into the key I, which is the most dense part of the song. So that's contrast. Now, something interesting with contrast and very fun with contrast is you can also do it in key I. What does that mean? Well, if you take a look at this, you'll notice we have these super clumped up circles, right? And then we have this really sharp, big spacing right here for this one sound. And then it's super dense again. Or super clumped up. And then now we're spacing more for the different sounds. But you can see how we keep having these super close circles that then break into big spacing, but then they start getting super close again. This is showing contrast in the key I. We don't have to space everything like, you know, cross screen, right? Like we don't need our key I's to be like this, right? Like, wee, Sotarks, jumpy, woohoo, yay. We don't need that. You can do it, but I don't think it needs to happen for this song, right? So we're showing the contrast of the song by having these more densely or close spaced objects that transition into the bigger spacing. So overall, this is probably a very, very big information dump. And I understand that. And me and Angry are here to help. I'm sure you could also ping Socks. And yeah, so that's our lesson on emphasis, contrast, and density.